roll the record. All right, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Rabbi Hendeles, for preparing some Divrei Torah for us, and please take it away.
Okay. First of all, I just want to express my appreciation for everyone who came. What I mean to say, I have a tremendous amount of respect for for everyone who comes to shiur at night. It's a voluntary shiur, and I just want to express that respect that I have for everyone who comes just specifically to hear Divrei Torah. I think it's a tremendous thing. It shows a tremendous amount of idealism, and it's something that I really truly admire. As far as this week's parsha, when I was young, I wasn't that young, and when I was in shul, I would listen to the rabbi speak. So I remember once hearing a rabbi point out, this was maybe 10, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, whenever it was, he pointed out that there's a phenomenon that sometimes the Balaturim will drop a bombshell and then he'll run away. He said it's like a little of a medrash pliya. It's that style, like he'll say a bombshell, he won't explain it, he'll say a bombshell and he'll run away. So his particular example was that in parasha-related, the pasuk is talking about Navi Sheker, a false prophet, and it says in that context, it says the word Bekirbecha. So the Balaturim says in the word Bekirbecha, in amongst you, he says the gematria of Bekirbecha is the same gematria as Zu Ha'isha, the lady. It's referring to the lady. That was the bombshell. Now, what's he referring to? The false prophet is going to rise amongst you. Amongst you is the same gematria, the same numerical value as this is the lady. What's he referring to? So the rabbi said that there are some additions. I wasn't able to find even this original Balaturim in the Chumashim and the Kollel, but I think I'm pretty sure I've seen it in the past. The rabbi said the rabbi definitely quoted it, and he said that there are some additions which add, maybe in parentheses, Ubina, this is the lady and her son. Meaning the false prophet that's going to rise amongst you is a well-known lady who later became a saint, and her well-known son who later became something more than a saint to many people. And that's the false prophet, he said, that the pasuk is referring to when it says Bekirbecha, Zu Ha'isha, it's the gematria of Zu Ha'isha, this is the lady, referring to this famous lady and her son. Anyway, so this phenomenon, I think, exists in this week's parsha also. There's a Balaturim in this week's parsha. He says this week's parsha is about the Tochacha. So it talks about all the bad things that are going to happen to people when they do bad stuff. If you do bad stuff, bad things are going to happen to you. What are the bad things that are going to happen to you? A lot of stuff, a lot of things. Then after that, it says a whole value system. If somebody decides to donate his value, the value of his, however much he himself is worth. It's like when I was young, my father used to put me on the cash register sometimes, and he'd say, "How much is this worth?" So the cashier, the lady behind the counter, would say he's priceless or something like that, something to make me feel good. But so if somebody donates his value to the Beis HaMikdash, so how much does he have to give? So the Torah gives a specific amount for each person. If he donates the value of this person, he gives this amount. If he donates the value of this person, he gives this amount. Each person, based on their age and gender, has to give a certain amount. So the Balaturim is coming to explain what is the connection between these two things. Is it a coincidence that you have, first it talks about the bad things that happen to bad people, and then it talks after that about the value system when somebody gives his value to the Beis HaMikdash. Is it a coincidence they're together? So the Balaturim says it's not a coincidence because how many curses are there? How many bad things will happen? So he says if you make a count, if people do the wrong thing, how many bad things will happen? If you make a count, there are between the bad things listed in this parsha and the bad things listed in Parshas Kisavo, how many bad things are listed? 143. There are 143 bad things altogether. If you make a count of all the shkolim, all the money that people have to give between all the men and women and girls and boys and children and elders of how much their value is, all those numbers together add up to 143. 143 curses, 143 shkalim, they equal each other. Is that a coincidence? So the Baal Turim says, no, it's not a coincidence, because the 143 shkalim that are being donated to the Beis HaMikdash are going to atone for the 143 curses. Is that clear? The 143 shkalim are going to atone for the 143 curses. I think, to me, somebody once told me something as clear as the Mississippi River. I've never been to the Mississippi River, but apparently it's very murky and unclear. To me, this Baal Turim,
Cincinnati, you can tell people it's as clear as the Ohio River.
the Ohio River.
I think every time I've looked at it, it was brown.
Okay, so that's a good example. The Ohio River. It's about as clear as the Ohio River. 143 shkalim are to atone for the 143 curses. What in the world is he talking about? It's a bombshell the Baal Turim dropped and did not explain himself. I once heard the following idea from the Rabbi. I didn't hear it directly from him. I heard it in the name of Rabbi Yaakov Kraus. He's the Rav in Young Israel of Los Angeles, Hancock Park officially. This is what I understood from him. It's not exactly what he said. This is what I understood from him. So if you like it, you could quote it from him. If you don't like it, you could quote it from me. But this is the way I understood this. I think it's a beautiful idea that this Rabbi Kraus explained. As just a short explanation beforehand, I think it's a very strange thing. If you actually think about the value system. So what's the value system? I said it before. It's decided based on age and gender. So that means every man between 20 and 60 is lumped together. Every man is lumped together. Every woman between 20 and 60 is lumped together. Every boy between 5 and 20 is lumped together. Every girl between 5 and 20 is lumped together. So if I were in charge, which thank God I'm not, if I were in charge, so I would have said, well, if you learned one Masechta, if you learned so much, you're worth this amount. If you learn more, you're worth this amount. If you're a big tzaddik, you're worth this amount. If you're a bigger tzaddik, you're worth that amount. I would think it should be based on how much a person did. Or maybe a different value system, how strong he is, how good he would be for fighting, how good he is in business, I have no idea. But just to say that every single man between 20 and 60 is all the same. All men are created equal. Sounds very nice. All men are created equal, regardless of what they've done. The guy could be sitting on his couch watching TV all day, or the guy could be supporting hundreds of kolim, or the guy could be the Gadol Hador. The Gadol Hador is actually worth less because he's over 60. The Gadol Hador is over 60. He's worth less. What's going on? So Rav Hirsch explains a beautiful idea. He said there's one common denominator that every person between 20 and 60 has. Every person between 20 and 60 there's only one thing that every single person between 20 and 60 has in common. And that thing is that God needs them. That's the only thing they have in common. That they have a mission in life. Hashem put them in the world for a certain purpose. And Hashem needs them, so to speak, to fulfill that purpose, whatever it is. Each person has their own talents to fulfill their own purpose, what they're here for. That's the only thing that they all have in common. I once saw, when I was in Israel, I was in a friend of mine's apartment. It was the Dira. But I was in his the Bachim Dira there, and he had a sign up by his bed that said, "Isn't it amazing?" Maybe use the word cool. Isn't it cool that the same God who created mountains and rivers and valleys also looked at the world and said, I think this needs one of you too. It needs you. He said it needs the mountain, and in my case, it needs Yehuda Hendeles. And each person, Hashem looked at the world and says, I think this world needs one of you too. So this is the idea. I think the Lubavitchers actually, they make a simcha on a person's birthday, because the birthday signifies the time when Hashem said the world cannot go on one more day without you being born. That a person's birthday is that time. Hashem said the world can't go on without you being born. So that's the one thing that every person has in common between when they're 20 and 60. Each Rav Hirsch explains each age based on what the person's mission in life sort of changes. Meaning, there's 5 to 20 is the time for chinuch, is the time for preparation. 20 to 60 is the time for actually going out, is the time when the person is in his prime. 60 and above is the time more when he's less in his prime. He's more looking back over at his life and thinking about his accomplishments. Maybe he's doing more also, but he's not in his prime anymore. And Rav Hirsch explains each of the numbers based on these factors. But again, this is the point that Erchin is coming to teach us. That a person's value is because God needs them. Every person, every man, woman, and child has a value because the world cannot go on. The world cannot exist without you, without me, without you, without him, without her. The world cannot exist without any one of us. The world can't exist. So this is the idea, I think, of the Balaturim. This is how I understand what Rabbi Krauss was explaining in the Balaturim. Why do people do Averos? Because they think, who cares? What difference? If I do something wrong, does it really make a difference? If I do something right, does it really make a difference? Or maybe they think, who are you to tell me what to do? Or maybe they think, who's he that he has a right to demand that I shouldn't hurt him? Or like, who's he anyway? So meaning Ben Adam Chavero, why shouldn't I hurt him? Who cares? He's a nobody. And you know what he did to me? Or something like that. Or there are any number of reasons that a person would do something wrong. And all those reasons, if you were to look at a value system that you're important because Hashem needs you, and he's important because Hashem needs him, and she's important because Hashem needs her, if that's going to be your value system, so then you're not going to have a bloated idea of yourself, and you're not going to look down at other people because Hashem needs all of us. The world can't exist with all of us, without any one of us, and each of us has a purpose in his life that only he and only he himself can do, or only she herself. Every person has something that they're the only person in the world who could do it. And that's what Erchin comes to teach us. So all those problems, all those curses, and the 143 curses all come from a lack of understanding of who you yourself are and who other people are. Erchin comes to atone for that. Erchin, if a person understands the intrinsic value of every other person and the intrinsic value of himself or herself, so then he's not going to have problems anymore. The 143 curses are atoned by the 143 shkalim in Erchin. If this is something, it's something we can think about, and if we'll think about this, and I think it will help self-esteem, and it will help esteem for people to appreciate who others are, and Mirza Hashem will atone for the 143 curses, and Mirza Hashem will build the base of Mikdash. With this, we'll be able to build the base of Mikdash.
Amen, amen, amen. Shekayach, Rabbi Hendeles, that was gewaldig. You cleaned up shell. What? Yeah, and Rabbi Krauss, that was amazing. It's funny. I was listening to a recording from Rabbi recently, and he said that his mentor told him, "Bechukosai, you can darshan anything, but not Erchin." You did it. You made it work. That's gewaldig, and I love that reverse. So powerful. All right, Shekaya, thank you, everyone, for joining. I wish you a wonderful Shabbos. Thank you, Rabbi Hendeles, and all the Cincinnati Kollel for all that you do, sharing this Divrei Torah for us. And I wish you all a meaningful Yom Tov as we approach Chag HaShavuos, the time of Matan Torah, of Kabbalah, receiving the Torah. All right, have a wonderful night, everyone. Yishakayach. Be well.